The chilling events began on October 9th, 2004, in Morocco's capital, Rabat. That day, the local police station received a frantic missing person report from a Moroccan family. Their son, Murad, had suddenly vanished without a trace. Officers immediately launched a search, but the boy remained elusive. Days later, the search finally ended, but not in the way anyone had hoped. Murad was found murdered inside a derelict, abandoned house. His wrists had been tightly bound with rope, and a single fatal blow from a sharp object had severed a major vein, causing his death. Yet, this wasn't the only terror found at the scene. Scrawled across the room's dusty mirror, written in the victim's own blood, was a cryptic, horrifying message. 1 of 5. What did 1 of 5 mean? The silence in the abandoned house was suddenly thick with the promise of more unimaginable horrors. This story, brothers and sisters, is the stuff of cinematic thrillers, and it was documented by Brigadier Abdelatif Bouhamouch from the official files of the Moroccan police. To uncover the full truth and reveal the terrifying individual behind it, you must follow this tale to its very end. The terrifying answer came swiftly. Just 2 days after the discovery of young Murad's body in Rabat, police received a second alarming report. This time, the victim was a young man named Issam Sawidi, found dead in a bustling local cafe. The cause of death was profoundly unsettling. He had consumed a massive, lethal dose of poison mixed into a cup of tea. However, what truly riveted the investigators and sent a fresh jolt of fear through the force was the message they found scrawled on the cafe's bathroom mirror. Just like the first scene, it was a cryptic tag, but this time it read, 2 of 5. This horrifying repetition was undeniable proof that a single, ruthless killer was behind both Murad's murder and Issam's poisoning. The police force was thrown into chaos and confusion. They quickly rounded up a large number of eyewitnesses who were in the cafe at the time of the incident, launching an intense interrogation to find any lead on the person responsible. Yet, their testimony was frustratingly uniform. Everyone agreed the atmosphere was perfectly normal until suddenly Issam, who was simply sitting at his table, began to scream. Before anyone could react or offer aid, the man was dead. After Issam's body was taken to forensics, the medical examiner's report confirmed death by a massive dose of poison. Naturally, police questioned everyone working at the cafe, scrutinizing them for any opportunity to have administered the poison. Yet, just as before, they hit a dead end. No one provided a meaningful lead. There was absolutely no evidence pointing to an employee. It became starkly clear that they were dealing with a highly dangerous and professional killer. The police began formulating a strategy to track this elusive murderer. But it seemed the criminal was several steps ahead. Before they could put their plan into action, the third horrifying alert arrived. Residents reported a car fire in the Harhoura forest area. When the officers reached the scene, they found a vehicle engulfed in flames with a person trapped inside. In a desperate, split-second effort, they managed to pull the young man from the burning car and rush him to the nearest hospital. Based on his ID and papers, investigators identified the young man as Samir and were able to piece together some preliminary information about him. But what truly stunned the police for the third time was the recurring, macabre signature. Scrawled on the rear windshield of the burned-out car was the message, 3 of 5. Stop for a moment. This chilling number was the one common thread connecting all the crimes. 1 of 5, 2 of 5, and now 3 of 5. It clearly meant that 2 more victims were needed to complete the killer's terrifying count. The police were completely baffled. The perpetrator remained a ghost. At this point, the only hope investigators had was for Samir to wake up and tell them who did this. And indeed, Samir awoke from his coma. Barely able to speak, he confessed that he knew the killer's motive for targeting them. However, the information he offered wasn't enough, and tragically, he passed away in the hospital just 2 days later. This single failure completely upended the police's approach. With the clock ticking and a known body count looming, they immediately deployed security forces across the region, desperately trying to locate the final 2 potential victims before the killer could claim them. However, the killer was still far ahead of them. While the police were frantically searching, they stumbled upon the body of the next victim, a man named Khalid El Matouk, found dead inside his car. And for the 4th time, police discovered the grim signature linking all the crimes. Scrawled on the car's window was the horrifying message, 4 of 5. In this murder, the killer had used pepper spray to incapacitate the victim before delivering the fatal blow. A detail that was immediately checked against the first 2 victims, Murad and Samir, and confirmed as a shared method of attack. Investigators intensified their efforts to capture this relentless serial killer. The situation was dire, and they were dealing with a highly sophisticated predator. Despite their determination, they had no concrete evidence. It's crucial to remember this was 2004. The police lacked the advanced forensic tools and widespread CCTV coverage common today. This technological deficit made the murderer's invisibility all the more frustrating and terrifying. Wait just a minute. You're right. We need to know what Samir told the police in the hospital. Get ready for the shocking truth he revealed before his death. Samir's revelation to the investigators was agonizingly delivered. He confessed that he, along with the 3 deceased victims, Murad, Itsam, and Khalid El Matouk, and one other person, a 5th person, had committed a heinous crime some time ago. They had abducted a young woman walking alone in Rabat, forced her into a car, and taken her to an abandoned house in the forest, the very same house where Murad's body was found. There, they held her captive for 3 days, repeatedly assaulting her. To make matters worse, throughout her 3-day ordeal, they provided her with neither food nor water. Samir speculated that the perpetrator of the recent murders might be a relative or family member of the girl seeking revenge. The tragedy: they never even knew the girl's name or who she was. After hearing this confession, the police officially charged Samir with kidnapping and assault. But he died from his severe burns just 2 days later. The truth was out. They weren't looking for a random serial killer. They were hunting a calculated angel of vengeance. Yet, despite this breakthrough in motive, the killer remained elusive. In the midst of the police's frantic attempts to decode the case and locate the perpetrator, a sudden, unexpected message arrived at the station. It was an anonymous letter, claiming to be from the killer who had murdered all those young men. Initially, the investigators dismissed it as a hoax, a desperate attempt by someone seeking attention. However, their skepticism vanished when they realized the letter was meticulously detailing the specifics of how each young man was killed. It was a chilling, undeniable confession, painting a clear picture of the murders. The true shock, however, was the identity of the person who sent the letter. The sender was not a relative, an acquaintance, or even a friend of the abducted girl's family. The sender of that chilling confession was the girl herself. In the letter, the young woman recounted her entire harrowing story with the 5 men and meticulously detailed every single crime she had committed. She stated plainly that she had decided to take justice into her own hands after the law had failed her, choosing a path of brutal retribution against her attackers. So, what exactly did the letter say, and what were the details of the initial crime? Now, the real story begins. The year was 2004. A young woman named Fatima Khalid wanted to move from her family home in the town of Wazan to the capital, Rabat, with the goal of finding suitable employment. She was a pharmacy college graduate, armed with her degree and seeking a fresh start. Naturally, Fatima was unfamiliar with the capital, and her disorientation led her down a dangerous path, a notorious street known for its high concentration of dangerous people, drug dealers, thugs, and sex workers. Even at midday, in the bright sunlight, she walked down this street, looking around nervously. The unfriendly, intimidating demeanor of the men and the presence of suspicious women immediately signaled that she had made a terrible mistake. She quickly tried to turn back and exit the perilous area, but fate was against her. Before she could escape, a black car screeched to a halt in front of her. A person dressed in black leaped out, violently grabbed her and shoved her inside. Inside, there were 3 other men, 2 who pinned Fatima down between them on the back seat, one of whom was muffling her screams, and the third driving the car. As the car sped away from the city, Fatima pleaded, begging them to let her go, insisting she was not from the area and not one of those girls they were looking for. Her pleas were met with a vicious slap across the face, followed by a harsh command to be silent. At that moment, Fatima knew her begging was useless. All she could do was focus on the road as they drove, hoping to memorize the route, even partially. They continued until they reached a dusty, unpaved area. And then, her last hope was extinguished. They blindfolded her so she could no longer see or remember the way. Fatima desperately tried to keep track of her surroundings, calculating the distance the car traveled after entering the dirt road. She was certain they drove for only a few short minutes before stopping. They pulled her out of the vehicle and removed the blindfold. She found herself in a remote, desolate area, far from the city. Standing before a derelict, abandoned house, she was dragged inside and taken to a room. There, within those abandoned walls, her life was utterly and completely destroyed. The brutal, continuous assault lasted for 3 harrowing days. During that time, she was held captive without a single piece of food or drop of water. After the 3 days passed, the men bound her again, blindfolded her, and drove her away. They dumped her back in the very same street where they had abducted her. In that moment, Fatima was utterly broken. She was tormented by the thought of her family's reaction and the crushing judgment of society. This mental anguish was literally driving her to the brink of suicide. But despite the unimaginable savagery she had endured, a fierce resolve ignited within her. She made a solemn vow to reclaim her dignity and extract justice from her attackers, one by one. Armed with her grim determination, Fatima immediately went to the police station to report the crime. However, her encounter with the authorities that day became the greatest heartbreak of her life. The officers began demanding evidence she simply couldn't provide. The names of her attackers, the car's license plate number, or a medical report confirming the assault. Worst of all, they coldly dismissed her, stating they frequently received similar claims from sex workers following disagreements with their clients. Fatima was devastated, utterly unprepared for such a cruel and dismissive response. She withdrew her complaint and left the police station utterly broken. When she subsequently consulted a lawyer who confirmed the police's assessment that without evidence, the legal route was hopeless. Fatima knew her justice would never be served through the system. She slammed that door shut and decided she would have to claim her retribution with her own hands. At that moment, a second, darker personality was born within Fatima, and she began meticulously crafting her revenge plot, setting her sights on the 5 men who had destroyed her life. The first critical step in Fatima's plan was identifying her 5 attackers. 4 days after the agonizing incident, she summoned every ounce of her strength and resolved to retrace the car's journey during her abduction. She hired a taxi and, using any tiny detail she could recall, desperately tried to describe the route to the driver. Her persistence paid off when they finally reached the dirt road, the very beginning of the trail. Fatima dismissed the taxi and started walking alone down that neglected path, determined to find the derelict house. She searched, she scoured, and she walked with a focus born of trauma and vengeance. A victim, after all, never forgets the location of their pain, even if it means traversing the ends of the earth. Finally, against all odds, she was able to locate the abandoned house. She soon realized the house was part of a large farm in a remote, desolate area with no other residences nearby. Looking at the structure brought back a flood of sickening memories and crippling fear. But she refused to back down before claiming her justice. She memorized the location meticulously. Since the criminals were not there, Fatima returned to the city, formulating a second, ingenious strategy. She decided to stake out the exact spot where she had been kidnapped, which was next to a well-known shisha cafe. Day after day, she returned, disguised in worn-out clothing, pretending to be a beggar. She sat there, cemented to her spot like a lone soldier, watching and waiting. Then, one day, luck finally favored her. She saw one of the young men who had abducted her. Her inner elation was overwhelming. She watched him leave in his car and, quickly hailing a taxi, followed him all the way back to his residence. She discovered he lived in a large villa, not far from the very street where she was taken. Fatima committed the villa's location to memory, left him to his false security, and went to prepare her precise plan. She returned the very next day. Standing before the villa gate, Fatima rang the bell. Moments later, the young man, Murad, opened the door. He froze in shock. How did the girl they assaulted find his private home? "Listen," she said, her voice steady but holding a sharp edge of menace. "I know you're shocked, and so am I. I just want to talk things through quietly, back at the house where you took me. I don't want any trouble or a scene." Then came the threat. "But if you refuse, I swear I will scream and expose everything right now to your family. I will bring the whole neighborhood down on you. So, will you come with me quietly, like a gentleman, or not?" The young man came from a prominent and well-respected family in the area. Fearing a massive scandal that would ruin his family's reputation, he decided it was better to comply and at least hear her out. He got into his car, hoping to contain the situation. Fatima, with a deceptive calm and a flirtatious manner, managed to convince him she was just a confused girl with a crush, guiding him to the abandoned house. Once inside the derelict building, she spoke to him softly, acting completely normal, until she was certain he harbored no suspicion. In a flash, she whipped the pepper spray from her pocket and blasted it directly into his face and eyes. The spray's debilitating effect was immediate and overwhelming. He dropped to the floor, screaming in agony. Without wasting a second, Fatima produced a strong sedative, pressing it against his face until he drifted into unconsciousness. She then calmly searched the premises for a length of rope. Returning to the stunned man, She bound his wrists tightly and dragged him into the exact room where he and his friends had assaulted her. She stripped him of his clothes, placed him on the floor, and waited with chilling patience for him to wake up. When Murad finally came to, he was terrified to find Fatima sitting calmly before him. In one hand, she held a razor blade. In the other, a voice recorder. "Listen," she said, her voice completely devoid of emotion. "Don't make this difficult for either of us. Give me all the information about the men who were with you that night. Otherwise, I swear I will kill you right now." But what Murad didn't know was that Fatima had made her decision long before. The moment he finished talking, she executed her vengeance. She slashed his major vein with the razor blade and watched impassively as he bled out, leaving him to die alone. Before she left, she used his own blood to scrawl the chilling message on the dusty mirror. 1 of 5. Fatima now had everything she needed to proceed with her dark plan. Now knowing everything she needed about the second man, Isam, Fatima set her sights on his workplace, which Murad had described. Day after day, she covertly tracked Isam's movements, learning his routine without ever being detected. She discovered that every day at 4 in the afternoon, Isam frequented a specific coffee house on Alal Ben Abdallah Street. On the day of the attack, Fatima transformed herself completely. She applied heavy makeup and changed her appearance by 180 degrees. She disguised herself as a street vendor, carrying products for sale, and walked into Isam's regular cafe. While pretending to sell her goods to other patrons, she keenly watched Isam, observing when the waiter served his drink. When the waiter placed Isam's mint tea on his table, Fatima approached him. Cleverly engaging him in her products, she made sure his attention was fully diverted. With a rapid, unnoticed movement, she poured a potent, colorless, and odorless poison into his cup. She then calmly slipped out of the cafe and watched from a distance. Mere minutes later, Isam began to scream and writhe in agonizing pain. As customers rushed to his side to figure out what was happening, Fatima quietly re-entered the cafe and walked into the bathroom. There, on the mirror, she used her own lipstick to scrawl the next chilling number, 2 of 5. Fatima returned home as if nothing had happened. She then retrieved the phone number of the third man, Samir, from the voice recording she had taken from Murad. She called him. Samir answered, confused. "Hello? Who is this?" "Look," she replied smoothly, "I'll be honest. I've had a huge crush on you for a long time. I want you to take me out on a date so we can spend some time together." Of course, the flattered young man agreed instantly, suspecting nothing. A free opportunity had just presented itself. Fatima once again dramatically changed her appearance with makeup, and they went out. As they were driving, she made a simple request. She asked him to drive by her friend's house, giving him directions. She successfully lured him onto a secluded forest road, an isolated path through the woods. "Stop here," she told him when they reached a specific point. She got out of the car, pretending to wait for her friend, but was actually checking to ensure the area was completely deserted and no one was watching. She then returned to the car, walked around to the driver's side, and tapped on the window. The moment Samir lowered the glass, she pulled the pepper spray from her pocket and emptied it into his face and eyes, blinding him instantly with the powerful burning chemical. Next, she retrieved a canister of gasoline she had pre-hidden among the trees. She doused the entire car and Samir with the fuel, shut the door tightly, and pulled out a match. As she lit the fire, she leaned in and delivered her final, chilling message. "I am the girl you assaulted." She then lit the match, setting the car ablaze with him trapped inside. Finally, she scrawled her message onto the car's window. 3 of 5. The letter moved on to the fourth man, Khalid El-Matouk. After her surveillance, Fatima discovered that Khalid was a regular patron at a bar in the area. Using the same meticulous method, she transformed her appearance, dressing up and heading to the establishment. When she walked in, she found him already heavily intoxicated. She struck up a conversation with him, successfully luring him out under the pretext of wanting to spend time with him. An invitation the very drunk Khalid was quick to accept. They agreed to drive to the Marmora forest on the outskirts of Rabat. Once they reached the secluded area and parked, Fatima scanned the surroundings to confirm they were alone. She then quickly lunged at him, pressing a piece of cotton soaked in a potent anesthetic over his mouth. Since he was already severely drunk, the combination of alcohol and the powerful sedative instantly knocked him completely unconscious. She dragged the completely unconscious Khalid from the car like an animal and laid his body out on the ground in front of the vehicle. She then got back into the car, put it into gear, and drove, repeatedly driving back and forth over his body until she was certain he was dead. Afterward, she calmly got out, took a piece of paper, and wrote the chilling words 4 of 5, which she then affixed to a nearby tree. Recall how the third victim, Samir, awoke briefly in the hospital and confessed to the assault on the girl. This news, about a young woman exacting revenge on her attackers, spread like wildfire through Moroccan newspapers and media. The fifth man, realizing his turn was imminent, was gripped by sheer terror and psychological breakdown. Convinced Fatima would find and kill him next, he rushed to the police station and turned himself in. He confessed his part in the assault, frantically begging the police to save him from her vengeance. Meanwhile, Fatima, learning that the fifth man was missing and realizing the authorities would soon be able to identify her, acted swiftly. She managed to escape the country entirely, slipping away before the police could ever track her down. The ultimate closure arrived in May 2005. A letter was delivered to the office of Police Chief Abderrahim Boudar. The message read, "Sir, I am the girl who was assaulted by the 5 gang members. I have carried out their death sentence, just as they executed my dreams and forbade my return to my city. Despite the pain I suffered, I did complete my studies. When this letter reaches you, the plane carrying me will have already departed for a distant country, and I will not return to my homeland again." Fatima had written the note to ensure that no innocent person would ever be wrongly accused of her crimes. Having taken justice into her own hands, Fatima vanished completely. The story ends here. Was Fatima's vengeance justified or unjustifiable? I will leave that answer to you. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video with friends who love great stories. And of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I always enjoy reading them.